Herkese merhabalar. Özellikle Felsefelogos çatısı altında yürütülen ve genel olarak akademisyenlerle yaptığımız sohbetleri içeren yeni bir kayda hoş geldiniz. İzleyicilerimiz için tanıtmam gerekirse bugün Adriana CAVARERO ile birlikteyiz. Kendisi İtalya'da özellikle feminist felsefe üzerine yazılarıyla oldukça iyi biliniyor. Bugün In Spite of Plato ya da Platon'a rağmen adlı kitabı üzerine konuşacağız. Genel olarak maskülen eğilimler içerisinde feminist sistemler nasıl kendini var eder ya da kadını nasıl yeniden okuyabiliriz üzerine söylemleri olduğunu söyleyebiliriz. Kendisine merhaba diyelim ve hemen konuşmamıza başlayalım. Adriana, hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
You are well known in Italy with your feminist writings, so can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Oh yeah, okay, thank you. Yes, I'm well known as a feminist theorist, as a feminist philosopher. I have many connections in Europe and the United States too, because I've been teaching many years ago at Berkeley, at New York University, and very recently, I mean, few months ago, I've been giving lecture at the Chicago University. So I'm happy to have international connection because, you know, it is important to be in touch with the people near you, with the families near you, but it is very important to have international exchange and to understand the position of other feminists and other philosophers. I wrote many books because I'm old enough to be very prolific, and recently I published a book on the concept of motherhood, inspired by the Euripides Bacchae, because I'm also sort of specialist on classical Greece, on Plato, tragedies, and so on. All of my books are translated in English.
Yeah, it's a big success.
Yeah, you know, English is the no language, the language of everybody, and the no language.
Yeah, of course.
We are speaking in English. And sorry for my English, but it's communication.
Yes, of course. It's a great pleasure to meet someone who is interested in ancient Greek and also a feminist philosophy. So you are related to them, and it's an interesting point of view, actually, because when you talk about the perspectives of human beings, they are also using the masculine language, you know. They are not talking about woman or woman's perspectives, but you are making it especially on Plato or tragedies, and it's a huge honor actually for me to meet with you. And I'm gonna keep on with the questions. Actually, in ancient Greek, we are seeing that woman related with death, sin, or destroying points. But with Antigone, there is a break point we can use, but it's not like a strong woman decide to her fatum, but it's like a woman character taking the lead, and we can see a woman in the first time. And then they are keeping with Medea maybe and with Electra. But it's not like masculine domination. We are just seeing a woman characters and they are taking lead, but not like a hero, right? I can say that. Yeah. And in your book, you are using different woman characters in spite of Plato. You are using 4 different characters, but before that, I want to ask you that is it about your environment? Why you choose this topic in ancient Greek and woman? This combination, is it about your environment in Italy or just a motive for you?
I mean, just a motive because Ancient Greece is part of my education. I've been at university, Lyceum in Italy, classical Lyceum. You learn Greek for 8 years. This just my intellectual education. But what I try to do, in spite of Plato as well, but in many of my books, is to look at the Greek text, maybe the text of Plato, and deconstruct this text. But this is not enough. The construction could be interesting, and a critical approach could be interesting, but it is not enough. What I try to do is to isolate some female figures, like, for example, Penelope, because Plato mentions Penelope, or Demeter, the myth of Demeter, and try to re-signify this figure. I mean, to rob this figure from the context and to reconstruct after the deconstruction, which is negative, of course, to do a positive reconstruction of this figure, of course, through imagination, through this attempt, this effort of signifying differently the role of these female figures.
So it's like Derrida's method he uses in Platon's Pharmacy. It's about maybe.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it is concerned with Derrida because it is a deconstruction.
Yeah.
But one of my inspiration as an author is Lucy Irigaray as well. For example, in her book Speculum, it is 50 years now from the publication of Speculum by Irigaray. 50 years, half a century.
Yes.
So this is the deconstruction phase, the construction modality. What is most important for me is the construction, is the reconstruction.
Yes.
The reconfiguration of a context, of a feminist context, in which the female figure, like Penelope or Demeter or Antigone, could signify differently, positively.
Yes. So I want to ask you, what do you think about ancient Greeks' feminine perspectives and today's contemporary perspectives? Can you compare them?
I think it's very difficult to compare them because in ancient times we are in a very, very patriarchal context framework in which the concept itself of equality is unthinkable. I mean, equality is a modern concept. It's from the French Revolution on. Before the French Revolution, or before John Locke, if you want, it was not a concept available in the common language. So when we think of feminism or feminist theory in the modern context, we always have to do with equality, if you will, with emancipation. Both of us, me and you and me, we are emancipated women. So we are in an academic context. We write books. This was unthinkable in the ancient times, also in the Middle Age.
Yes.
In the modern and the contemporary is very different. Of course, as always it happens, when not only as feminists, but as sorry, as theorists, as authors, as interpreters, when we look at the past, we look at the past from the perspective of the present.
Yeah,
So
of
we don't
course.
understand the past perfectly well. Our perspective is always a contemporary perspective. We know that.
Yeah, of course, it's about our lives, actually. We live in a contemporary world, and of course, we need to look at in the historical concept, but we cannot succeed in it. So you are choosing four characters, as I said before. They are Penelope, Thracian servant, Demeter, and Diotima. But we can see different woman characters in Homer's books, in Plato's books. Why you choose especially these characters?
The first character I chose, to be frank, was the servant from Thrace, which is in a dialogue of Plato in the Titus, because she was a woman who is capable of laughing and of mocking philosophy. And the idea, I mean, the scenario of Talete, I don't know the verb in English, going down and trapping, stepping,
Yeah.
stepping, and falling down because he was looking at the stars. And so this is the sort of allusion to the fact that metaphysics is to look something abstract, something in not near the earth you are born in and where you walk, but something metaphysical, something beyond the empirical, and the servant laughing. And this was very interesting for me because on the one hand, I could and I did deconstruct the scenario. The scenario could be misogynist because she's ignorant and he's a great philosopher. He looks at very important things and she's a servant, so she's ignorant. She has no particular education.
So she decreases his grade, maybe.
Yeah, this is the deconstruction.
Yeah.
Deconstruction is the power of her laugh or her mocking, the power of teaching to the philosopher, teaching that what really matter is where you walk. What seriously matter is matter. Is your body. What really matter is the place you live and the relationship you have, empirical relationship. And philosophy is an abstraction, which is also a distraction, being distracted from the real life you live in your body and your environment. So this was the first figure that very interested me. The second was Penelope, because Penelope, she's very strange in Homer, because when Odysseus is back in Ithaca, the dog and the old man recognize him and say, but you are Odysseus. And when he says, Penelope, I'm your husband, she doesn't recognize him. She said, she's very uncertain. She said, I don't know. I want to question you, to put you some question. So it is very interesting, this attitude, source of resistance to being recounted again as the husband as the wife of the king, in a typical domestic feminine role. Because when Odysseus was away. She was the queen.
Yeah. So
She
she has
ruled.
a different signification after he left.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Demetra, she is very important because there is the relationship between the mother and the daughter, which is one of the topic I focus on everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The importance of the relationship. And on the other hand, Demetra is also the symbol of the power of generating, because when she decides of stopping generating, regenerating nature, we
Yes.
have the desert, we have nothing. And the world, the nature is flourishing only when she agreed to that. So there's an extraordinary sovereign power of generation. So she's sort of symbol of the mother. And at the end, Diotima, of course, is extremely important because she is a character, a central character in Plato's Symposium, and she is the teacher of Socrates, and so she is the sort of symbol of women intelligence, of women capacity to construct a philosophy, and this is, of course, interesting within Plato philosophy as philosophy of love.
When you are taking your characters, maybe we can say that they have a threshold. They are between some things. It's like life and death, conscious and unconscious. So they have always something comparable. But these characters have unique and inaccessible worlds time to time. And this time we can see it consciousness or unconsciousness. So it's a comparable thing. We can see it and we can create it again and again when we are reading your work. And do you believe that women today in contemporary world or capitalist world or in maybe in a cool world can build themselves these kind of fields, these kind of areas? They can be unique and free and maybe untouchable.
Yeah, I mean, the question is very difficult. In a way, I want to answer about the possible relationship between women and the ecological problem, ecological question. I think that if we consider the fact of sexual difference, the difference between the two sexes, and the fact that the main aspect of this difference is the capacity of women to generate, to give birth, and to give birth, to be born. In Italy, we call it nascita, which is from the Latin nascor, to be born. I don't know in Turkish, but in Greek, nature is called physis.
Yeah,
and physis is from puo, which is to be born again. And so this interconnection, strict interconnection between the body of women, of the capacity, the power of generating, of giving birth, and nature itself, intended as the multitude of the forms of life, not only human species, but animal species, vegetal species, plants, all the world of the living in its infinite multiplicity, which is characterized by a continual generation and regeneration. And so the connection, that if you want a etymological connection between women and birds, is also a connection, an ontological connection, an ethical connection between women and nature as the word of regenerating all the forms of life. And so if we, this is my opinion, if we adopt the point of view, the perspective of the women body as a generating body, we can have a comprehension of what the natural means, more powerful than the simple scientific approach to the question of nature. I mean, I'm very favorable to the scientific approach. I'm fond of science. I'm not professional or anti-scientific. I'm not speaking of a methodology, which the scientific methodology is the better we have, but a sort of perspective, a sort of ethical perspective in order to use this methodology.
So
I call this an zoocentric ecology, zoocentric, or if you want, biocentric ecology.
Yeah. You are giving a special place to giving birth to something, but in Demeter we are seeing that she has a different connections with nature and with her daughter. We cannot say the Persephone is the nature's daughter, but it's Demeter's daughter, like as my mom and me. It's kind of relationship, and she has to choose. I'm talking about Persephone. She has to choose to live with Hades or just live with her mother. So why she need a choosing point? Why she cannot decide what's gonna mate freely?
Yes, I mean, because she is, in my opinion, she is the symbol, the image of our own condition of contradiction. I mean, as a feminist, I would choose the relationship with my mother and with nature and with generation. But of course, we live in a society, we live in a given society, and we pertain to the world as well, to society and social ceremonies and social regulation. So when she is the wife of Hades, she is in the feminine role of being a wife in a family, in a society. Something we do as well, I do as well.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, if you are a teacher in university, it's because you belong to society and you know the norms of this society. And half the year, Persephone, she goes back to the mother, and this is the perfect relationship symbolizing the regeneration of nature. So she's on the threshold, she's in a contradiction, but I think that many women are within this contradiction in everyday life.
Yeah, of course, of course. So I'm gonna ask you a last question. What you can offer to your readers as a woman in today's world, or also maybe you can make an inspiration or offers to our students who are gonna listening it as a woman or as a woman in men's world.
Yes, I mean, I'm speaking as a feminist philosopher, and as a feminist philosopher, what I offer or what I intend to offer to young women, to also to young men, of course, but especially to young women, is the strength of imagining the world differently, the strength to be different, and the hope of a different imagination and different way of living in this world. So in my book, in my books, when I do the deconstruction, I do it. I mean, I hope etymologically, seriously. So in a way, I also teach a modality of studying and of interpreting, a serious modality of studying and of interpreting. But on the other hand, when I go to the constructive, positive phase of my writing, I offer sort of model of imagination, of daring to imagine differently the figures of women, female figures. And so I hope to offer continuously the capacity for an imaginary of hope, an imaginary for changing justice or degradation or something of the things that women suffer also in our society. I hope to give strength and for imagination, for changing.
Yes, so it's about being brave a little bit, maybe.
Energy.
So I can say that when I listening you, I just imagine some kind of a theory. So I want to talk about Kant sapere aude. He says, just be brave to use your minds and make brave things. And just as Socrates say, know yourself. So you can know yourself with being brave and with strength, right?
Yeah. To
Yeah.
know yourself and to know that you have the capacity to change. I want to insist on this imaginary of hope because in the feminist tradition I belong to, there are wonderful works on critical approach. I mean, on what we can call deconstruction. You read the text, could be Plato, could be Nietzsche, could be a novel, doesn't matter. You read the text and you underline where the text has gender bias, where the text is very patriarchal or misogynist. And so it is a sort of displaying, discovering, showing the misogynist thread of the text. They're everywhere, obviously. And this is important, but it would be a big mistake to think that feminism is such. Feminism is critical approach, deconstruction, and blaming the misogynist tone of the Western microtext, for example. This is a very useful exercise, but it is a marginal exercise. The real exercise for becoming free, for becoming a strong and free woman, a strong and free student, this is for all, is to reimagine, reconstruct, recombine, is combining and then recombining and giving a different signification. So to know yourself, for quoting your question, to know yourself, the Socratic notion of self-tone is to know your capacity to imagine and to change. Your little treasure as the treasure of free intelligence and creative generating intelligence.
Yes, so it's like thinking out of the frame, we can say.
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, out of frame, but knowing the frames.
Yeah, of course, with knowing and
It's
putting.
important for my education. This is important.
Yeah, of course, of course. When you are not reading your past, you cannot build a future.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. You have to face, to confront the society you live in, and you have to confront the past and all of the interpretation of the past.
Yes, yes.
Because I don't have, for example, a direct and immediate approach to Plato. I mean, I know ancient Greek. I can read Plato in Greek, but I'm not so naive to think that is a question of Plato and me.
Yeah.
Between Plato and me, there's a long history of interpretation of Plato. So I must know also the history of the innumerable interpretation of Plato. And this is for all. When I speak about a myth, an ancient myth, it is not the myth of and me. I'm not naive because I'm old enough for not being naive. And anyway, I'm a teacher, so I hope not to be very naive.
Yeah, of course. Adriana, thank you for your answers. We are at the end of our interview. I'm really honored to meet you, and thank you for your good answers, and it was so inspirational. Hope to meet you again.
And I hope so. And thank you so much.
Okay, see you.
Ciao.
Evet, şimdi röportajımızın sonuna geldik. İzlediğiniz için çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Ben Doç.Dr. Özlem Derin Sağlam. Bugün Adriana CAVARERO ile birlikte röportajımızın sonuna geldik. Umarım hem güçlü kadınlar için hem de kadınların farklı işler başarabileceğine inanan herkes için özellikle ilham verici bir röportaj olmuştur. Kendinize çok dikkat edin. Hoşça kalın. So I'm ending the record.